So banks essentially, in the old days, operated borrowing short, lending long. Now you would think that that was simple, riskless, and straightforward. It wasn't. In fact, the 19th century and the early part of the 20th was full of banking crises where one of two things went wrong. Either the borrower couldn't repay the bank, or the people who had their money in the bank wanted to have it back. Usually these events were not unconnected because bad news got around that the bank was about to go broke, so people lined up and there was a run on the bank. Now, the Dutch back in the 17th century and the British in the 19th got around to dealing with this by establishing central banks, which essentially bailed out in one way or another commercial banks that were solid but illiquid. In the United States, the last such major monetary crisis was in 1908, before Congress came around to recognizing that they can't really leave it to J.P. Morgan to bail out the banking system as he did in 1908, but they better have something which they ended up calling the Federal Reserve. Ever since then, the United States has a Federal Reserve System. We in Canada have a central bank since the 30s, although really wasn't as bad as it sounds, because the Treasury in Ottawa did various things even before that the central bank has subsequently taken over. Now, having set up reserve requirements, having set up central banks, and eventually deposit insurance, the economics profession broadly assumed that the banking system, the monetary system, is kind of looked after. Okay, sure, there'll be glitches, there'll be problems, but by and large, it's not going to be the source of major negative blow-ups. So if you go and criticize the economists for having created macro models, Larry Klein having been one of them, in fact, probably the earliest one, with serious econometrics in it, it was a situation where the money part was ignored, everything was done in real terms, and as a kind of afterthought, people used to say, well, of course, if you overdo the money creation, you'll have inflation, and that's a no-no. But that was left to the central bank. The central bank was supposed to be able to control all this. So here we were, the whole economics profession that built its, certainly the macro part of it, built its models without worrying terribly much about money. The writer in The Economist claimed that we assumed that capital markets were perfect. I think that's not exactly true. I think all that was assumed was that the money markets will adjust.